If you're new, hi, I'm Christine Elder. I love the marine environment. I'm a scuba diver and snorkeler. So today's subject is humpback whales. Okay, and now almost always I like to show you guys a skeleton. This is a skeleton basically of a more generalized baleen whale, all of them. So you can see that it has some similarities to the other skeletons I've shown you before of other creatures, including, giraffes and the rhinoceros, but they're really adapted to the marine environment. And the biggest difference is, of course, their giant head and this lower jaw and the upper jaw that holds the baleen to help them filter feed. And then they have, the backbone like we do. They have the shoulders like we do, but their arms are very much modified compared to any of the other mammals we've drawn so far. So their arms are more shortened and broad and used more like a fin, like a fish. So they've kind of got like what we call convergent evolution between fish and marine mammals in order to be able to swim. And then the main thing you notice that's different, another thing that's different from the other mammals we've drawn, is they don't have any back legs. So they've lost those. You can just see some tiny little bones right there. And that's the vestiges of their hip bones and their leg bones. So those are still there, and those help to attach, muscles are attached to those for certain purposes, like in breeding for the males. Okay, so anyway, that's what that looks like. And here's a cute picture. This is the guy we're going to draw today. And you can see really clearly its structure. Let me see. Let's keep going. Now, this side view shows very well some of the unique aspects of the humpback whale. We talked already about kind of his hump, but one of the unique things is their front fin, or their pectoral fin. And that's the longest in relationship to their body of any other whale. And so it can be like the third of the length of the whale. Now, these whales can get usually about 40 to 50 feet long. So that's longer than a school bus. And they can weigh like 40 tons. So that front fin or flipper can be like 15, 20 feet long. Isn't that amazing? So that's unique of all the whales. And also it's got these scalloped edges. Okay. Yeah, we'll get to the baleen in a minute. Thank you, Mary. So it's got these scalloped edges that are really bumpy. And those are bumpy because of these things called tubercles on them. And they use those big fins, of course, to swim. They have a very long migration, but also it's thought that they protect themselves with that. So their predators include killer whales, also known as orcas, and great white sharks. And so they can hit with those. And they can also breach up out of the water and slap the water very hard with those large fins. What else? Okay. Now here you see the underside, and you see again those really large fins. And those fins can have barnacles growing on them as well. You also see here the really long parallel lines, and those are the pleats of the throat that are going to expand when they feed. We'll talk about feeding more later. You can also see back here the opening for using the restroom and also having their babies. And what else? Another really obvious thing you see here is how white they are on the bottom. And see how dark they are on top and how white they are on the bottom. It's unpigmented. And we've talked a lot about pigmentation in these workshops and about why things are different colors. And so a lot of animals that are pelagic, meaning swimming in the open ocean, including fish and marine mammals, they'll have a dark upper side and a light underside. So when people or predators are looking at them from above, that dark top blends in with the darkness of the ocean. But if something like a shark or an orca is down below them and they're looking up at them, they're white unpigmented belly blends with the lightness of the sky. Okay, let me look. I'm looking at here. Okay, keep going. Okay, no, there's that picture. Okay, so I talked about how they can breach and they do all kinds of interesting behaviors. And here you can really see those scalloped fins, and you can see barnacles growing on top of them. So, one reason whale watching is so exciting and so popular is because whales do have a lot of really interesting behaviors up above the water, to communicate with each other and to scare off predators and to feed and to look around, what we call spy hopping. So they're looking out over the water to things far away. Okay, let me see. Quickly looking at questions. Okay, got those. Okay. Now, talking about feeding. So we talked about how there's two main kinds of whales. There's the ones that have teeth, like killer whales, and they hunt big fish. And the other type of whale are the baleen whales, and they're filter feeders eating krill and smaller fish. So again, that's like the humpback whale, the blue whale, the gray whale, the fin whale, the minke whale, those guys. And here you can see him or her coming up out of the water, and they've got, so it's the bottom jaw is just filled with water, and the top jaw is where the baleen hangs down. And those are these, let's see, how many are there? I forgot, I read something. There's like 50 of them or something, of these parallel plates. And so they open their mouth and get all this water in, and then close their mouth and squeeze those pleats. And the water goes through the baleen plates and captures the fish and krill. And so here's a super cool picture I got. I bought it, but anyway, it looks like they're trying to eat that seagull, but they aren't. These whales are doing a really special kind of feeding where they all work together as a group, helping each other. And so they will they will make this thing called a bubble net. So they'll swim down deep under a whole school of fish or a school of krill. What do you call a group of krill? A school? I'm not sure. But anyway, so they'll dive down below their prey, and then they'll circle around, and they'll have taken a big breath, and then they'll squeeze out bubbles, and they'll make this thing called a bubble net. And it's really cool. And that will sort of visually trap the prey within that net, because they think they can't swim through the bubbles. So they've learned how to fish that way. And then they swim up in a circle, and they trap the prey against the top of the water. And that's how they are able to take in that huge amount of water and hopefully prey inside. And then they squeeze their mouth shut, and the water goes out, and the prey stays in, hopefully. Kate Spencer, oh, hi, you're here, my expert. A krill swarm or a school. Yes. So my friend Kate, who's watching in the chat box, so she's the one that I mentioned earlier that runs a wonderful whale watching company in a boat called Fast Raft. I forgot the name of your boat, but your company is called Fast Raft, and you're out of Monterey Bay, which is one of the most famous areas in the world for whale watching, because it's all protected, that bay. And I used to work there, both at the Moss Landing Marine Lab and the Monterey Bay Aquarium. So anyway, this is a very pixelated picture. This is a drawing I did decades ago, but it's kind of showing how a whale is closing its mouth, and some of the krill comes out and some of the water comes out in bubbles, but they capture the krill as well as small fish like anchovies and mackerel and that kind of thing. Okay, Elizabeth has to go. Okay, bye-bye. Now, another super unique thing about the parts of a humpback whale are its tail. So whales, of course, have a big, powerful tail for swimming because they migrate and swim great distances. And so they have this big tail called a tail fluke. And so the humpback whale that we're drawing today is really different from other whales, really unique in having this, again, it's kind of scalloped, just like their large pectoral fins. And it's scalloped, meaning it's kind of wavy on the back. And you'll also know the different colors. So you see black and white patches. And that just happens to be super unique to each individual. So the humpback whale species have these individual patterns, and that's been very helpful to researchers, to people going out there and trying to monitor the health of populations and the size of populations and their migration. So the researchers will go out on boats and they'll take pictures of all of these whales and basically have a whole photo album of all of them. And I think they'll name them, at least they number them, and they name them and help them. And so here's another image of the whale once it is going to go dive down. Now, this other image here is a gray whale. That's an illustration I did decades ago too. So anyway, and here's another illustration I did back in 2005, but it just quickly shows you how the whales can look really different on the underside of their tails, and how that can help researchers identify exact individuals. Just like human individuals have a unique fingerprint, whales, humpback whales, have this unique fingerprint of color patterns. Okay. And then, so I did this illustration 2 decades ago about the gray whale, but the life cycle is very similar to humpback whales in that they will go up into the far north in the Arctic, to the Arctic Sea, in the summertime when there's 24 hours of daylight, and that fuels the base of the food chain. So there's a lot of krill and a lot of small fishes for them to eat. And they will just chow down and eat 24 hours a day. And then come wintertime in Northern Hemisphere, they're going to go south, just like the gray whale. They'll go down to Baja and all the way down to like Costa Rica. And then others will go over to Hawaii, to the Hawaiian Islands. And others that live in the Atlantic will go to like the Caribbean. And they will spend the winter there. So here's just an image I found on the internet, just showing you where they're feeding in the summers at the high latitudes, and then coming towards the equator to have their young. And so they're going to, they're going to have their babies in that nice warm water. And during those months when they're in those summer waters, they are not eating at all. They're living off their fat reserves, and all they're doing is they're raising their babies. And of course, the males are courting the females with those songs that we played for you earlier. So that's just a quickie about the humpback whales. We'll talk a little bit about the structure of the whale we're drawing in a second. But let me just move ahead. And if you're new here, please type into the chat box new so that I know you're brand new. I know we always have a few new people, and we definitely have more people today than we did yesterday. So there should be some new ones. Anyway, my philosophy about sketching is that I want you to value the process over the product. So the process of seeing drawing as a tool for understanding. And one of my phrases is drawing to learn while learning to draw. So basically thinking from a scientist or a naturalist point of view, as if you were Charles Darwin or John Muir or John James Audubon or the Lewis and Clark expedition, and you're out there in the field with your sketchbook and your binoculars or your magnifying glass, and you're observing species and using your sketchbook as just another tool for learning. You know, in the old days, before we had film and video, all we had is pencils and paper. And so drawing something was a way to learn more about it, just like writing in the journal and writing field notes about where you were and what you were studying. Like Alexander von Humboldt, I'm reading a great book about his life right now and how much he traveled and kept notes. So I want you to think of drawing as just another way of taking notes to learn about a species. And so then So I have these 6 steps to drawing anything. And if you're brand new here, you can learn more about that on my website. Again, you can click below. There's a button that says click here for resources that will lead you to my website. And over there is where you can sign up for my what's called my 6 steps from stick figures to songbirds in 60 minutes. Yes, I tried to do a lot of S's in that phrase. And so many of you I know have done that whole course, and that's really going to be helpful for you today and in the future. So basically, I have these 6 steps. And I know we're not drawing a seahorse today, but they're the 6 steps to drawing anything. And so basically, when we're going to draw our humpback whale today, we're going to notice, we're going to block in the basic proportions, circles and triangles and ovals that we see. We're going to look at relative proportions. So how big like that pectoral fin is to the rest of the body. We're going to use the concept of alignment, or what 2 or 3 structures line up together. Okay, and then looking at negative shapes, and that's why I usually give you a high resolution photo that has white in the background, so it's really easy for you to see. I want you to think about angles of those negative shapes, like are those a 30 degree, a 45 degree, 90, or even 120 degree angle. And then the concept of flow lines is how easily your pencil is flowing around the object. And if that is like if you're imagining you're a little ant and you're crawling along the edge of your little like seahorse here, would you be going up and over mountains, or would you be sliding down, a gentle slope like a slide? Okay. Oh, Rebecca, you're already on your whales. Okay, great. We're almost there. So also, if you're brand new, I want you to think of the concepts of keeping your drawing light and loose, keeping that pencil moving, resisting the urge to erase all the time, and glancing back and forth between your subject and your sketch paper really frequently, so that you're sure that you're drawing from observation and not from memory or imagination. Okay. Now, let me see the questions real quick. Again, it's kind of harder for me to click over on the question box. It takes a lot longer for me than to just see them. People are voting for things. Okay, great. Okay, good. So let me see. Okay. So now we're going to look at, this is the image we're using and we're drawing today. So just a few things to notice before we start with actual drawing. Okay, and we're going to draw both of these guys. So I have this little smaller one that just shows the total side view. And we really notice how dark it is on top and how light it is on the bottom. We're noticing that small pectoral fin. So every whale has a different shape of pectoral fin. We notice the tail, which in this case is very foreshortened. So the whale's right side of his tail is going to be much smaller when we draw it than the left. And then looking at the bigger image of his face, you notice all of those bumpy tubercles that are natural outgrowths of the hair follicles. And also you can get barnacles living on there. And I think there's actually one specific species of barnacle that lives on them. I'm not sure if that's per ocean basin or what, but there are specific species of barnacles that live there. And then let's see. Okay, so you notice the pleats here. So the pleats running all the way back down. You notice what looks like a really tiny eye. You notice the blowhole. That's this bump here. So don't forget to draw that. So as marine mammals, they have to breathe air. They come up every few minutes or so to breathe air, and they're going to blow out the excess out. That's called their blow. And there's very characteristic shapes of each species of whale's blow. And people like my friend Kate Spencer, who's watching, know how to identify those so they can help the people on the boat know what species they're looking at. So even if the whale is a long ways away from you and it's just breached a little bit and gone right back under, you can tell what species it is. And so the humpback whale has his blowhole his or her blow shape is only like, I think about 10 feet tall, and it's kind of like V-shaped or sort of like heart-shaped. And that's really different than like the shape of a blue whale. Okay. So anyway, don't forget to draw that. That's where the nostrils are, right behind there. And then you've got the very small pectoral fin. And in this 3/4 view, you don't see the fluke at all in this big guy, okay? Because it's hidden. He's hidden it, he or she. Lastly, we have these 2 pectoral fins, and the one on the left is larger because it's closer to you, and you see those really obvious scallops that you're going to want to draw. And the whale's right flipper is smaller. Okay, let me see. Was there anything else I wanted to know? Let's see. Cheryl says, how deep can they dive? I don't know right now. That's a great question for Kate if she's still here. Now, I don't think they dive that deep compared to other whales like, who is it? I think the blue whale who hunts for the giant deep water octopus, I mean the squid, the giant squid. I think they can dive, I don't know, 1,000 feet or something crazy. I'm not sure, but anyway, they can dive a long ways. Any other questions? Okay, good. So I think that's all the parts that we're going to notice here while we're drawing. You can also see the really nice cast shadows here. So this whale was in really shallow water, this top whale. That's why he's lighter colored, he or she. But you can see the cast shadows under the fin and under the chin. So you can draw those later too. Okay. So again, what I do in these presentations is we start by talking about the ecology and natural history, and especially the anatomy of a critter, so that when we start to draw it, we'll already be really familiar with it, really feel good about it. Let's see. Sorry, I had to take off my sweater. It was too hot. I get really hot with these lights here. So Dorothy says it's her 3rd lesson, and Carolina says new. Pascal says new. Okay, great. So anyway, I always spend some time, and sometimes it seems like I'm spending too much time talking about the critter, but that really helps. Once you start to draw them, it'll be much quicker. So here I have pre-recorded this video tutorial. I do that in my other bedroom there. That's my art studio. And so I do this drawing part, so then I can talk to you about it while we're drawing, and then I can pause it as well. And so on the left, I've shown a larger version of both of these guys without the white blacked out or whited out, without the ocean whited out, so that you can really see them in real life, kind of how they look. Okay, so let's get started now. And again, you can get rid of your chat box and make your screen as big as you can. And even if you're not drawing with us, even if you don't have the materials, I suggest you watch, and they'll give you a really good idea about my techniques I use. And then you might want to watch the replay later, might want to notice what time we started here with this tutorial part, and watch again, drawing along with it, okay? So as usual, I kind of like air draw over something, and I'm just visually thinking about the different parts of the body. We've already talked about the head and the eye and the whole shape of the body, the tubercles and the blowhole and those pleats there. And the mouth is kind of turned downward, and the eye. And then those scalloped pectoral fins, which are the largest of any whale. Okay, so now we're going to draw both of them today for fun. We're going to draw this side view first. And what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of making little tiny marks about where my whale is going to be. Now, you might not have this piece of paper, but this is just how I'm doing it. Okay, Rebecca, you keep working on the whale now. So try to get it even more accurate if you can. So really looking at the angles, the alignments, the negative shapes. Now you can't really see my line yet, and that's okay. I want you to draw very lightly as well and not push down on the paper at all. We're just getting the oval of the body, the shapes of the fins and the flukes in the most lightest way. This is going to be our foundation for drawing. And you see, I'm using my pencil. You new people, I'm using my pencil to measure the angles and alignment, the width, the height. And I'm going to work all over very lightly. So I start really lightly on just the outline of the body. Yes, Blake, go into full screen, that's for sure. And the larger the screen you have, the better. Maybe you can even watch on your TV like my friends in St. Martin were doing. So now you see I'm just going a little bit darker, like with that tail fluke, and doing the top part. I think I probably have him angled a little bit too much going upwards, but that's okay. Just starting light and loose, just getting the main body before I start adding the flukes and the dorsal fin. So you see, I do lots of measurements to make sure that I'm kind of the right shape and size, because you know how it goes. If you start drawing something, like you just start drawing the head of something on a piece of paper, you probably draw it too large and it'll go off the page and you won't have room for the whole thing. And so you see, I'm really doing this a lot. And especially if you're brand new to drawing, it does really help if you can print out these high resolution photos, even if it's just cheap black and white printing. It can at least give you the outlines to draw the proportions. Okay, so you see now that I'm just cleaning up my edges. Now that I've kind of got my basic shape of the whale, I'm going to look all over, just double checking, and then starting to add a little bit more details. And I'm going to be pushing a little bit harder on my pencil onto the paper. But you can get a lot of different values with one pencil, going from super light and very almost invisible to really, really dark black with any one pencil. So now I'm adding that small pectoral fin. So, you know, fishes have those too, but it's a totally different kind of structure. Now drawing that line that goes into the tail fluke, and you see, we see the tail fluke from the side and it's foreshortened, meaning, you know, the left side of its tail fluke is closer to us and larger and longer. So you're really going to want to notice that. So I'm going back, working on the face a little bit, making it a little longer, making the lower lip is a little bigger than the upper lip, if you notice, especially from this photo over here. So I'm going to be adding that, and just again working, double checking that I have the shape of the lower part of the body first, so that I can mark the right place that huge pectoral fin is going to be, because remember, that's the largest fin relative in size to any of the species of the whales. It's the most unique thing about you know, one of the most unique external features of the humpback whales is that large scalloped fin that can be a third of their body weight, length, I mean. So their body length can be like 40 to 50 feet long, and that fin then can be up to a third of that. So I'm just lightly outlining it and getting the width and the length of it first before I add more of those scallops. And you don't have to be perfect with those. Those can be in totally different places. Those scallops and the barnacles that grow on them. I'm not talking about a scallop like a clam. Scalloping just means like a wavy edge. So just cleaning up my line a bit. And again, I'm always double checking. I'm looking back and forth between my photo and my sketch, back and forth ground truthing. So now we're going to look at that fluke, that tail fluke, that very powerful fluke. And we're noticing how small it is on the right side because that's farther away from us, like, like 6 feet farther away from us than the whale's left side fluke is going down towards the bottom of the page. And just kind of lightening up my lines, cleaning up that edge. And so again, now that I have a whole outline a little bit better, I'm going to start doing the internal structures. So we're doing the length and shape of the mouth and the location of the eye. And we'll do a little bit more detail on the one on top. We don't see that very well in this photo because this whale is deeper here than this photo. So I'm just then, after I got the mouth and the eye, just strengthening up my outline because I'm pretty happy with it. So we're just going to strengthen that up before we move on to the whale above. And remember, the back of that tail is uniquely scalloped too. So it's kind of wavy. And we really don't see the color patterns that I talked about before. Those are on the underside of the tail more. So going to the front, we notice that lower lip is longer than the upper lip. Then I'm drawing that chest and then those flukes, and I'm doing the little wavy part that can be really different among each one. By Charlotte. And its belly. And there we have it. So that's our outline for that one. Oh, we're only 1 minute over. So perfect. So usually I try to have the main part of the session be an hour because that's kind of what I promised. But you know me, I always go longer. And so if you're still here and you want to stay, we're going to draw this second one. First, I was just going to notice the color patterns. Remember, we called that counter shading, where many pelagic marine mammals and fish are lighter and unpigmented on the bottom and darker on the top to blend in more, to hide from both their predators and their prey. Okay, so now we're going to do the upper one. And I wanted to do 2 with this guy because I really wanted to show its really cute face. Well, I don't know if it's a male or female, but really wanted to show some more details of the face and the tubercles and barnacles and the pleats on their face. So again, I'm just lightly measuring the width and the depth of the drawing and measuring compared to the box, how wide everything is, all that. Just doing a really light outline, just like I did before. So the second one should be easier for you. And so again, you see how I go over things multiple times, staying really light and loose and pretty fast. And one of the reasons I do this, especially for you new folks, is this is kind of the way I draw out in nature. Now, of course, I'm not going to have a box to measure, but I start really light and I just work a little bit everywhere in case the thing I'm drawing runs off, either whether it's it's a humpback whale that I'm drawing as it's breaching, or whether it's a robin in my backyard. I never know how long they're going to be there. And so I try to just get a little bit everywhere. And if the animal stays longer for me, or maybe if he flies or swims away and another one comes back that's in the relatively similar position, I can just keep working on my drawing. So it's not like I totally finished its face and then I can't finish the rest of the body, right? So anyway, just working everywhere. You saw I did that really light outline, and now I'm using my left finger to help keep track of where I'm at, noticing those little tubercles. They don't have to be perfect. They're really variable among each individual, but those are little bumpy outgrowths of the hair follicles. And then we had that big bump where the we had that big bump. Sorry, we had this big bump here where the blowhole is and where the nostrils are, right? All right, here we keep going. Never know where my cursor is. All right. Yeah, Evelyn says you get nervous when you start drawing. You're such a perfectionist, right? I know, I know. Well, that's a first world problem. So try not to worry about that. The more you do something, the more lines you get down on the paper, the more lines you'll have to select from. And just keeping things really light, not pushing down at all in the beginning, that can really get you the structure. Oh, yes. Kate asked about it's male or female. It's not easy to tell, but there are a few clues. The biggest one is if the female has a calf swimming next to her, obviously it's a female. And if it's singing, it's a male. But I also noted, I think there's a swelling in the back there. You can tell certain seasons, right? Okay, anyway, now working on the chin and those bumpy tubercles. Again, you don't have to be too perfect. Every whale is going to be different. And you see how I'm double checking my widths and my heights of everything before I'm pushing down. I am not putting any pressure on that pencil at all. I'm barely holding it. So it's very feather light touch while I'm in these early stages. So just like on the whale on the bottom, I have done my outline and now I'm doing some erasing. Okay, so I'm separating that creation phase from the editing phase. Just like if you were a writer and you're brainstorming or you're green lighting, as they call it in a business meeting, you're just getting all your ideas down on paper. And that's how it is when I'm sketching, is I just try to get a bunch of lines down there and I separate that creating phase from the editing, which is the erasing. So you see how just like in the one below, now I did a little bit of erasing and I'm just going to clean up my outer edge that describes the main shape of the whale before I start adding its fin. Oh, okay. Yeah. Kate said the one that was upside down was a female because you could really see that the slits in the belly look very different, obviously, because they have to give birth to that huge calf, right? Okay, let's keep going. So again, I'm just cleaning up that outer line because if I don't know exactly where the main body is, I don't know where to put the fin, right? So I always do the core of the body first before I start adding the flippers or the wings or the legs or whatever. So now we're looking at that little tiny eye. And it's got some kind of like lines around it, give it some personality. You always want to pay special attention to an eye in an animal to really make it look lively and to get and have a little bit of a highlight in the eye to make it look alive and wet. I'm fixing my mouth here. So I had that angle a little bit wrong. It really dives down the angle of the mouth. Because remember, the upper part of the jaw is where the baleen hangs down. The lower jaw is where those pleats are that take in all the water and then squeeze it out. Oh, yeah. Kate says females also have two little mammary slits where the milk comes out. Whales are mammals and all mammals make milk. That's right. It seems like it could be a little bit of a slippery affair with the calf trying to hold on and nurse from the mother. I would like to see how that works. So now I'm getting that, the whale's right flipper. How big is a humpback whale calf when it's born? Kate, I don't know. Kate might know. I don't know. Maybe 10 feet or 10 feet. I'm not sure. I'm sure Kate knows. All right. So now we're continuing to work on the flipper or the pectoral fin and the base of it where it goes in just like here in our body, same kind of shoulder area with the scapula and the humerus, very similar to ours, just different shapes. and very thick and powerful bones and muscles that attach to those bones so that they can migrate. These guys have one of the longest migrations of any animal on Earth, going all the way from the Arctic or the Antarctic to the tropical waters every single year. Oh, Kate says they don't have to hold on. Whale milk is super thick, like soft serve ice cream. Mom squirts it right into the calf's mouth. Oh, that is adorable. And the calf can curl its tongue to catch the milk and swallow it. Oh, thank you for that wonderful natural history information. You know, when I used to volunteer at the California Marine Mammal Center, we would feed the orphaned seals and sea lions, and we would make this special milkshake for them that was really thick and rich, just like you were talking about, Kate. And we would use this big industrial blender, like a Vitamix thing, and the milk that we would make would be out of heavy whipping cream, so lots of fat, and then a whole bunch of frozen fish and all kinds of minerals and nutrients. And then when we made that slurry of milk, we would feed the babies by putting a tube down their throat and feeding them that way. And it had lots of calories in it because these animals really need to grow fast, and it's hard to stay warm enough in cold water. In fact, the baleen whales are the largest whales. They're all larger than the toothed whales. And they live in these really cold waters. So they have to be really big with lots of blubber so they can stay warm. It's like wearing a big down coat. Oh, yeah. Charlotte says, pause the video. Yeah, right. So anyway, in this case here, I was just darkening up the edges, going around, looking at how we look. And, you know, some things have to be more accurate than others. So like, I think my mouth opening and my eye is a little bit too low here. See that? That's kind of probably too low compared to where it should be. I could have measured that better. So that could have been a little bit better. But where these bumps are, the tubercles here on the snout, and where they are on the front of the fin, that isn't as important. So it's really another reason to learn as much as you can about the anatomy of something before you start sketching it, is so that when you do start sketching it, especially wild ones in the wild, that's a double word anyway, then you know what's important to get exact and what you can be a little bit looser with, okay? So, you know, where the barnacles are and the tubercles is not as important as like where the mouth and the eye are, right? Okay. Charlotte and Gabby says, the video is playing. No one knows what to do. Well, I just paused it, so hopefully you can catch up. Anyway, I'm just firming up the outline of the whale. So here we go. And the back edge, which is smoother than that front leading edge. And that front edge is where barnacles attach, just like at the front edge of the whale's snout, because a barnacle is a filter feeder, and usually they attach to the bottom of the ocean, like in the tide pools and in the kelp forests on rocks. But certain barnacles will attach to an animal because they can filter feed really well when the animal is swimming all through the ocean, right? So now just ending up with giving a little bit more detail to that eye to make it look more friendly and alive. And then looking at the tubercles, giving them some three-dimensional shape a little bit, kind of like those patches we put on top of the Amanita toadstool. So just drawing kind of random little circles, but trying to keep sort of accurate, but the number and size don't really super matter. And I'm doing little half circles underneath. Do you notice that? So these are tubercles that are three-dimensional. So they're going to cast miniature shadows right here below them, especially in this whale that's in the light environment. So I added these little half circles here to show just a little bit that they're sticking out. They're three-dimensional. So now I'm noticing all of those pleats and creases on the whale's body. Okay, and so I'm noticing those, and I think those are pretty unique for each species of whale. I think how many of those pleats there are, those are the parts, remember, that can expand. They're going to take in hundreds of gallons of water when they're lunge feeding, as well as the krill and the mackerel and anchovy and all of that. Okay, so looking around a little bit. So now I'm noticing that cast shadow. I'm not going to put a whole lot of color detail in here. I usually leave that to you guys, but that is something that I mentioned earlier, is you can notice those cast shadows on this whale that's in the shallow water. So it's much more obvious to see the shadows that are cast by the pectoral fin onto its belly, as well as the cast shadows under its chin. And you can't see those as well on the lower whale because it's deeper in the water. But if you've practiced drawing three-dimensional whales from like those sculptures or those realistic toys we talked about in the beginning of today, then you would kind of know how the light falls on a three-dimensional object. And even if you couldn't see, you would know that like the bottom of this whale, some of it would be a little darker than the top. You can see that a little bit on this one where it's lighter here and darker here and here, right? Okay, let's finish up. The whale's right fin is very much in shadow, as well as under its chin. And that's about it. Well, thanks so much for joining me today for our humpback whale sketching workshop. I hope you learned a lot about whales, and I hope you enjoyed sketching them along with me. Well, see you next time. Bye-bye.